All right, thank you very much, Willis, for that. And like you said, yes, it is World Intellectual Property Day today, and we want to find out more about intellectual property, what it means, for you and I, who maybe are creatives out there. And in studio, I'm joined by Liz Lenjo. She's an intellectual property as well as entertainment lawyer, and Kawera Mugambi, she's an intellectual property lawyer and as well as a general manager at BREAKFT. Very good morning to you, ladies, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's just quickly get into it. Let's start by defining what exactly intellectual property is, and maybe you can start with Kawera.
All right. So intellectual property is the protection of work, both artistic work and literary work. Okay. So this would mean books, inventions, softwares, ideas in music, authors, paintings, sculptures. All these things must be created because it's a creation of the mind, and now it has come into an expressionable form that now is tangible, and therefore that's how we call it, that's how we define intellectual property.
And who controls that in Kenya? Where does it fall under?
In Kenya, there are very many stakeholders when it comes to protection of your work. We have KIPI, which is the one that deals with trademarks and patents. We have Kenya Copyright Board, which deals with the copyright. So there are various stakeholders when it comes to protections of your work.
So it depends on your craft.
Yes.
It depends really on what you're doing. Okay. So this is a way of, protecting one's ideas, one's innovations, and trying to see that they're not stolen, that they become yours. Now I'm just trying to understand, does that mean every time I get an idea, every time I think I have the next best thing, then I should run to KIPI, because KIPI is the one that's under the government. I run to KIPI and tell them, oh, guess what, I have a new idea, let's patent this.
So let me just clarify, when you have an idea, when you go to a lawyer, we decipher what kind of, how to protect your idea. So you come to me and you say you have a script, I'll tell you copyright. You come to tell me you have software, I will tell you copyright for the source code, and then a trademark for the name of your software. So sometimes an idea can have very different elements of intellectual property protection. So then you interact with different bodies, with KIPI for the trademarks, patent, utility models, industrial designs, and then Kekobo, Kenya Copyright Board, for copyright. Yes.
Okay. Now there's an issue of my idea getting advanced. For example, I have thought of something, I share it, let's say, with my colleague Willis Roburu, and then he goes and twerks it, just maybe adds 2 or 3 things, and now it becomes a whole, he goes to KIPI and says, listen, this is my idea. How do we handle this?
So I think the best thing to do, we've had similar issues.
Yes,
you get a client, they come and they say, oh, I was with my friend, we were at the bar drinking, had this amazing idea, and the next thing my friend shafted me. So we always tell people that when you're getting into business with a friend, have it on paper, even an email or an SMS, or write it on a napkin if it was in the spur of the moment. Then thereafter, you sit down and allocate, who does what, and then agree, are we going to be co-owners of the IP? If that is the case, then you proceed for registration. If it's copyright, you go to Copyright Board and do the relevant registration, and the certificate will be in both of your names, and the same thing. Then after that, you agree now the commercialization, which means now when you go to, if it's a script, I'm going to pitch it to a production house, I don't just go with the registration alone. Now you have what we call the non-disclosure agreement, which is very important. An NDA just captures that the meeting happened, a disclosure took place of an idea, and you sort of assert your rights. With the absence of an NDA, it becomes very difficult. Like we say, anyone can come up with an idea. You can be 6 people with the same idea, but the first in time is one who will prevail. That's why you have the registration of intellectual property. So the NDA is always important. So many people in the IP space do not see the relevance of NDA until when we are firefighting, and then we're like, so where is the evidence? And they say, it was just a phone call. Did you record the phone call? No. Did you have an NDA or anything written? No. Who knows the meeting happened? Nobody. It was just the 2 of us.
But then how do you deal with the scenario where I have an idea and I've gotten a guardian angel, for example, to invest in my idea, and 6 months later, a year later, it is theirs. 1, 2. There's also the other issue of we see a lot of hubs coming up, hubs where we're meant to be generating ideas and stuff, and you find that yes, we can sign and say that, you know what, at the end of this, should it take off, it is fully yours, but then 6 years later, 7 years later, it comes back to bite you, and you're actually being told this is not yours. It's actually the people who funded this project. They're the ones who took it over.
I think I'll speak from a musician's point of view, because when it comes to music, there are various rights holders when it comes to a work's creation, and just because you simply funded it does not mean that you hold the absolute right to everything. So what do I mean? In a music composition, you have the composer, author, arranger, and publisher. These are the people who are represented by MCSK, and these people's rights are assignable. So I can choose to assign Liz my right, I can choose to sell that right to somebody, I can choose to assign or license that work to be used. But when it comes to the performer, the right of a performer is non-assignable. And now that goes into what you were talking about, the investor. The investor is covered under a body called Kenya Association of Music Producers, who are also rights holders within the music industry. So I can say when it comes to the music industry, it has already been taken care of by the allocation of the rights within the work. So these are things that need to be discussed from the start, because a lot of musicians don't even understand that when I invest in my music, I automatically become a music investor, and I become an executive producer. So over and above what I've created in the studio, I own another right, which is as an executive producer.
Okay, so that's music. What about for us who are not in music, are in innovations, are in, you know, creation of ideas? How do we deal with that scenario?
So the most important thing is, once an angel investor expresses interest in your idea or in your invention, you have to have the business discussion. When they give you a contract, you don't just sign. And it's been a very interesting tact that, you know, investors use. I show you the money and I tell you, this is all yours, just sign on the dotted line. So that's what has been happening. And then after the fact, you know, when things are happening, you realize, you know, you relinquished your rights to advance your innovation. You're no longer, you know, the owner of the innovation, and it's merely because you did not read the contract. So it's very important to read the contract. Before the contract comes in, you ask the angel investor, what do you want? And then you decide whether you agree with what they want or you move away. Half the time, of course, I put in the money, they would want to own it. Then you have to negotiate. Now people in this IP space, you know, innovation, in different other areas of IP centered areas, have not yet mastered the art of negotiation. And sometimes they think they can play the role by themselves instead of engaging a lawyer. But if you engage a lawyer, it's better. I will be able to tell you, this clause means, you know, you will transfer your rights. This clause means you have probably officially sold all your rights. You know, it basically, it would be important, you know, to have a lawyer on board.
I'm just wondering, are there any particular words I'd be looking out for? Because there's also the issue, I may not be able to afford a lawyer, you know. So is there particular words I'd be looking out for? Is, you know, a particular phrase I'd be looking out for when I'm looking at my contract to know that this is not going to work in my favor, this is definitely not going to work in my favor, this will work in my favor? Are there any particular words you can share with us?
So there would be the IP clause that would say ownership of all intellectual property created, you know, would vest in XYZ. So you look for that clause. You look on the clause on assignability as well. You look also at consideration. How much are you getting paid? You know, sometimes you could find that before the deal you expected small amounts of money, and then when you come to signing the contract, the amount has gone up. Once you see that has changed, it means so many clauses in that contract have changed. So just from the beginning, from page 1 of the contract, you see, did we agree? We said $1,000 US. It says 2,000. You just know, I need time. You just say, you know, I need time to look through. I think some things have changed.
And even the duration of the assignment, if it's an assignment, that's another very important thing, that people just assign their work. There is no end clause. Is it an exclusive contract? Is it a non-exclusive contract? Can you sell the same product to somebody else? Those are some of the clauses you really need to look out for.
And one of the
termination clause.
And when you said, I want to look out for perpetuity. When you see a contract say perpetuity, just know you are selling everything. So you need to take a step back. That's a very big word we love to use in contracts.
Something has just popped up in my mind, and I'm just wondering, does this also fall under for the people who are maybe in advertising? Because, you know, we can come together and you tell me, I want you to be the face of my brand, and then you've agreed for you know, maybe 6 months, and then a year later you're still using my face or my voice. Does that also apply?
Exactly, it does. Yeah. You look at the territory, you look at the exploitation, because if I'm going to be featured in an advert only on print, and then I appear on TV and online, then I should get more money, and the contract should state so.
Yes, exactly.
Now, in Kenya, we see that the most people who are aware of intellectual property rights happen to be artists, happen to be, you know, mostly musicians and those in the performing industry. Why is this so? Why is it that is it a deliberate push to ensuring that they know and then we leave the others, or what exactly is going on?
I think musicians got organized a bit faster than everybody else. We have a body like MCSK that was formed 30 years ago. PRISC, we are 6 years old. CAMP has been there, it has been in existence for long. So I think it has come with a need that musicians are now more aware that every time you walk into a set, you're not just going to sing, you want to know the terms of your conditions. And I think it took a lot of time for people to be exploited for a while to realize and wake up. So I think that's the same curve that now the software developers and all the other people in IP are going through. However, that should not mean that we should give up on them. There are so many institutions that have such good training. Strathmore is a very, very strong center that has been a resource to us as musicians. They have the CIPIT Center. There are so many resources. Kekobo has free trainings. One of Kekobo's mandates is training. So these are just some of the programs that people should engage in. Yesterday we had a training for photographers. We had another one for software developers. I didn't see them there, because people need to be curious, people need to be hungry.
Well, I think there's also the need for the information to be out there by these certain bodies, because I think it's something they would be interested in, but if there's not enough noise about it, then, you know, it will never get out there. But I just want to, if I'm not wrong, you are a performing artist for your role at PRISC. I'm just wondering, I'm just wondering, how have you benefited from knowing this whole thing about intellectual property? Because it's also important to, you know, just have a case study and see, okay, she actually did this and then this changed the fortunes, and, you know.
So for me as a performer, I still am a musician, and it has really helped me in my dealings. Now I know there are various other sources of revenue other than just royalties. I can synchronize my music, for instance, and get music sold. I don't have to think about music territorially. I think that's one of the things that in the WIP day today, as we celebrate it today, our theme today is digital creativity, culture reimagined, which means that now music is no longer just something that you sing for Kenyans and distribute within Kenya. It is something that has opened up the culture. You're now speaking to the globe. I think these are some of the things that have really helped me as a musician to just open up my eyes, and also to rethink my business strategy as a musician.
But there's a fear, sorry to cut you short, there's a fear that, you know, we are opening up, yes, and we're going to the globe, but then look at what happened to the Kyondo. It went. Look at what was going to happen to the Nyatiti. A lady came, learned how to play it, and before we knew it, well, we acted really fast and we were able to contain that scenario. So there's also that fear of, as much as we want to go global, you know, there could be that one or two people who are 2 steps ahead of us.
I think that's why we have institutions like the World Intellectual Property Organization that can help us and can train us, and you know, they protect some of our works. I think that's why it's a global movement. As is right now, we have about 188 countries signed on, part and parcel to the treaties of the World Intellectual Property Organization, which governs intellectual property all over the world. So we just need to step up, wake up, and do what we need to do.
And as we're, you know, coming to the end, I just want to understand the value of knowing your intellectual property, especially in a developing country like ours. You know, what's the importance? What's the value?
If you don't understand your intellectual property and the value of it, you lose a lot on commercialization. It will be very easy for you to lose out on a deal. It will be very easy for someone to infringe on your intellectual property, and then, you know, they would easily deal with the wrong person. So the money would, you know, be in the wrong hands. That's why it's very important. And then also control. You know, if you do not understand the value of your intellectual property, you could lose control. You could create something amazing, but because you didn't understand what was happening, and the next thing they say, oh, Liz discovered the cure for AIDS, but Liz did not know what that means. You know.
Okay. All right. We're coming to the end. Last question. It's World International Intellectual Property Day. How are we planning? How are we celebrating it as Kenya?
We had our celebrations yesterday. We had a pre-celebrations where we had workshops for photographers. We had another for softwares. We had another one for musicians, just teaching them how to monetize their work online. Today, in line with the theme, we are going digital. All this conversation is going online, so we're going to be engaging a lot of people. Our hashtag is @BREAK_Kenya. So you can join us in the conversation. I know Liz will also be joining us. But maybe just to give perspective to the impact of IP in Kenya, looking at Lipa na M-Pesa. Just Lipa na M-Pesa alone transacts 278 million. This is a study by Communications Authority of Kenya between October and December. 278 million shillings. Transfers, in terms of transfers, money person to person, 813.7 billion shillings. That is the impact of intellectual property in this country. Employment, between October and now, December 2015, 6,147 jobs created just because of intellectual property. This is one software developer. Imagine if we enable 10 more. Just 10 more. What could happen? What kind of society would we be looking at?
Food for thought.
Yeah.
To come to the end. All right, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you
this morning, and we wish you all the best as you know. Good to celebrate this very important day. That hopefully we'll all understand one fine day. All right, and I want to hand you over to Willis Raburu as he's getting to know who our guests are this morning. Willis.